What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, we did have Nintendo's financial reports released, and we'll go over some of the numbers there and some of the sales, but there was one big thing people were waiting to hear about, and that has to do with a certain prediction for the Switch 2, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Mafia: The Old Country because we had the full reveal for it with gameplay as well as its release date and a bit of a surprising price point for it. And Death Stranding 2 is out at the end of next month. I'm very much looking forward to it. And now with previews going live, it looks like Kojima went extra crazy on this one, and in this case, that's a good thing. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Hogwarts Legacy on the Switch 2. As it appears, there's another game now using DLSS. This we can see posted up. This is over on VGC. They're citing 4Gamer. Now, Sega is publishing the game in Japan, and we had some more information come out through them when it comes to the resolution, which says the game will render at 1440p resolution while it's docked. And then in handheld mode, it'll be using the screen's full 1080p resolution, and both modes will be supporting HDR. This through the DLSS upscaling technique, which we've heard about it with something like Cyberpunk 2077. So now here it is present with Hogwarts Legacy. Now they also say it'll have improved lighting, shadow quality, anti-aliasing, and much more significantly upgraded graphics for a deeper immersive experience. I think the big part of it though is that they're removing any situations where they had to break up the world and have a load screen, for example, going into like the larger town there. They went ahead and just got rid of that completely. So it's all seamless, whether you're getting on the broom and flying around or running around on just the ground itself. So it essentially has it now like how we've had it with the other systems. The Switch version was quite compromised. Here it looks like a lot of that's just been fixed for the Switch 2. How many people are going to go back and play it after it's been out for a while? I mean, it's going to be there for the early days of this new system, so I'm sure it'll pick up some sales there, but I've already played through it. I'm kind of looking forward to apparently the next game they're going to do and what's becoming, I guess, a series for them. But still, good to hear that the Switch 2 is handling the game really, really well, and it's another game using DLSS. Also, here's an interesting thing to keep an eye on with Donkey Kong Bananza. That is coming out in July, the month after the Switch 2. As it appears, maybe there is some form of multiplayer in the game. Take a look at this. This is posted up over on Nintendo Life, as they do have screenshots of exactly how Donkey Kong Bananza is presented over on Nintendo's website, where it is placed alongside of other titles in the multiplayer category, that being like Mario Party Jamboree, Mario Party World. This was noticed by a user on Famaboards. And then on top of that, it just says in terms of number of players for the game, TBD, or to be determined. So this, of course, has people speculating on maybe there is something similar to Mario Odyssey, since a lot of people look at this as, oh, this is part of the Mario Odyssey team that was working on this, and maybe they had the idea of, hey, with that, you can have a second player use a Joy-Con to control Cappy. Maybe there's something similar here with Donkey Kong Bonanza. I think that'd be a lot of fun, because while it wasn't like a full-fledged co-op mode where Mario and Luigi are running around in Mario Odyssey, it was still a nice little thing to have there just for people to either help you in the game or just completely troll you and mess around with Mario as he's trying to run around, do all kinds of platforming. So I guess keep an eye out for this one, as I'm sure Nintendo will share more details, especially as we get past the Switch 2 launch and start to roll towards its release. Oh, and we did get a release date for Gex Trilogy, along with a bunch of different editions you can spend hundreds of dollars on if you want. This, though, we can see this is over at Gamatsu. They say Gex Trilogy will launch digitally, PS5, Xbox Series, Switch, and PC through Steam on June 16th. Now, the different editions, they have just the standard one, they have what they call the Classic Edition, all the way up to something called the Tail Time Edition that has a 36-inch inflatable Gex doll. Doesn't have like a 7-inch Gex statue, but I mean an entire inflatable there that comes with it. That version is $200, but I mean, at that point, you've already made the decision. You're going all in with the Gex Trilogy there. I do like the Classic Edition has that original PlayStation box art set up there with the limited run text on the side. That's a nice nod to the the old school releases. But overall, I mean, I'll probably just play the regular edition when that comes out in June. I'm not like the biggest Gex person, but it was a franchise that was very much present growing up, especially with the original PlayStation. So, I mean, I'll check it out again next month when it releases and see just how well it's actually held up. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo's recent fiscal quarter report. This does span technically the entire year, but since we've gone over every quarter basically as it's happened, we'll just focus in on this most recent quarter that would have been January, February, and March. As expected, kind of a quieter quarter since they've already announced the Switch 2. All the focus is on this new system, and I'm sure most people, rather than getting into the Switch now, are probably thinking, I'll use that money instead with a little more on top, of course, to get the Switch 2 when it comes out in June. So they didn't necessarily have the best overall report. In fact, a lot of their major numbers were down double digits. However, you can see over on their website, they are now reporting that the Switch has sold 152.12 million units. That means this past quarter was 1.26 million. So again, down quite a bit from the last year, then the year before that. As you expect for a system that is completed 8 years on the market, it's actually pretty impressive that it's even still selling that at this point. But again, gross revenue, profit, all of that down double digits. So it seems, as we expect, Nintendo is full speed ahead on the Switch 2 when it releases in less than a month now. But from there, they did have a bunch of highlights they wanted to point out. I also will point out myself, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is coming up on that 70 million copies sold. I think it's going to get there. Even with the Switch 2 out, it's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it just keeps selling. Basically, as Nintendo keeps supplying, it keeps selling. And I'm sure some people may pick it up to play it on the Switch too. Hey, well, you never know. Anyway, some of the game highlights Nintendo specifically pointed out next to some of their other documents and stuff here. Super Mario Party Jamboree, 7.48 million. Echoes of Wisdom, 4.09 million, and Switch Sports at 3.16 million. They also mentioned that there are 128 million annual players right now that they have, so at least their overall user number went down like a million or so, and okay, holding steady there at 128 million. Many people, as you can see, are just engaged with Nintendo in this ecosystem that they formed and are now continuing on from the Switch to the Switch 2. The big thing people were curious about, because we are now in the fiscal year for the Switch 2's release, we do need their forecast, exactly how many Switch systems they believe they can sell by the end of this fiscal year that we're in, and of course that will end March 31st, 2026. Nintendo is saying that they will move 15 million Switch 2 systems, and in fact with the Switch 1, they're looking to sell 4.5 million, which technically speaking, all the way around with their Switch family, quote unquote, is 19.5 million systems. Now, the 15 million is technically under what analysts were believing Nintendo would be shooting for, which is actually closer to 17 million systems by the end of the fiscal year. Keep in mind, this isn't the first overall year of sales. This will be the first 10 months because, I mean, June through the end of March 2026, you are leaving out then 2 months that don't necessarily align completely with their fiscal year release. So you have to tack on the next 2 months, and that'll give you your first year sales. Who knows if Nintendo will give us that exactly? I'm sure people will be trying to track it like VG Charts and other publications and stuff. So it'll be kind of strange there, but at the very least, we'll find out how it did in its first 14 months or so, as Nintendo will be updating their website as they go along. And I have to imagine, as I said, this is a bit less than analysts were thinking, and even for Nintendo, I feel like they could sell more if they're able to produce them, or if they were certain of just everything going on around them. And I think that is the big holdup for them currently, is they're going to be very conservative about this number. 15 million is about where the Switch was around that same time, so they're not selling less than the current Switch when it first came out, but it's about the same. Although technically they're selling a system that costs more, and the games cost more, and just everything about this costs more than the Switch 1. So if you just align it completely, then technically it's going to be shooting for just more overall revenue. But I'm sure inflation, exchange rates, all this stuff kind of muddies the waters for them, especially that word tariff, which seems to be something that they definitely have at the forefront of their planning right now, just based on what some of the investors were saying, which we'll talk about that actually a bit over the weekend with some of the questions that Nintendo fielded. But for now, we'll see how they do with their launch again coming up here in less than a month. Next up, let's talk about Mafia, the Old Country. Now, at PAX East, they did have what looked like a panel and presentation, and as part of that, we did get the full gameplay reveal trailer as well as the release date and a price point that I hope to see a lot more actually as we go along. First though, you can see some of the trailer here. Some of the things to point out, I did notice at least the gameplay trailer, it's titled Whatever It Takes, but while the visuals look very good, I didn't really see much of a HUD during the gameplay at all. And look, they may just be hiding the HUD just to give it a better look, say, in this trailer for the presentation and the cutaway shots and stuff. I don't mind though if there's no HUD, you know? I think sometimes the HUD, like the screen space gets kind of busy with all these things they're throwing at you, all this information. This actually looks really, really good without too much on screen at all. And it, it did look a bit more like an adventure game. Some were saying Uncharted-like even. And I will say at times it didn't look like a Mafia, what I would expect a Mafia game to be. I mean, the last one I played that I remember was the remake that they did for the first one. That felt very much like a Mafia game. Still though, I'm interested here. It's not open world. It's more a linear, narrative-driven game. So while it looked like there were towns and set pieces, I think it's going to be a situation where they kind of funnel you through the game. But get this, it's a $50 title. So let's say, all right, it's a 10-hour experience, high quality experience, and it gets you from point A to point B in the story, and maybe you beat it over a course of several days, all right? I still think the $50 price point is something with even larger franchises, we'll say like these, that's leveraged more and more for releases that don't take forever to make and then cost a ton of money. The game is coming out August 8th though, so again, towards the fall, we're a few months out, three months away from its release, and I'll be on this day one because from what they were showing, I think it looks awesome. I like the idea of not having to go from big expansive open world that takes you 60 hours, big open world that takes another 70 hours. Here comes an 8-hour one. I don't mind sitting down and going, hey, okay, this is a 10-hour experience and it's focused. It's not like here's an open world, go find your own fun. I don't mind if they want to make what kind of boils down to more of a blockbuster film, but in game form with gameplay and everything. But it's something that doesn't feel like it's wasting your time. I don't mind having those dropped in alongside of the big open world titles, because if I have to go from open world to open world to open world, and they're all 50-hour plus games, that will get exhausting and fatigue will set in. So I like something like this to mix it up, and I hope more and more companies and big publishers look towards this example and try it a bit more, even with some of the big franchises, maybe with spin-offs or even just full-on releases. Next up, let's talk about, well, actually a big, expansive open world game that I am looking forward to, and that's Death Stranding 2. I liked the first Death Stranding. I know it was a controversial game. On release, even still now, people look at it and go, I don't get it. And I will say it is kind of hard to describe, but it is such a unique and interesting experience that it, even if you don't like it at first, it can kind of grow on you as you go along. The story itself is very Kojima, very all over the place, very confusing at times, but when you do get it, it's like, okay, I see the aha moments here, and it definitely all clicks into place at that time. But we did have previews go live yesterday, and Kojima apparently let people play like half the game. Some were saying they played up to 30 hours, and there was a ton of information flying all over the place around this game. I will also link here to Shinobi, who did a very good job. I mean, so many bullet points here of all the information with this game. I picked out a few, and then you can also see just the Death Stranding 2 trailer here just to kind of refresh your memory on it. But as the media was able to play 20 to 30 hours of it, it does take place 11 months after the first game, and the setting here, Mexico and Australia, which seemed to surprise a lot of the people who are playing it, that, oh wow, we're going to Australia for this. Now the player gets in the gameplay much faster to start the game. That some people, of course, looked at it and said the first game took a bit to get going, all right? In this case, it gets you there much, much faster. You're in the action right away, and even some of the previous gameplay mechanics seem to have evolved more, and that's sort of the focus here. It's still delivering, okay? So yes, you're still the UPS delivery person or whatever, but again, that's the thing. The concept sounds so basic and so mundane, but the rest of it isn't, that surrounds it. It's, again, hard to describe. The combat here, though, is a bigger part. So if you're someone who's hoping to have more action scenes and parts of it, that is here apparently quite a bit. The dynamic weather that they have means you're going to be facing extreme conditions, so storms, earthquakes, avalanches, which we did see an avalanche in the trailer, and the game looks incredible. Like, a lot of people are saying, hey, this looks awesome on, apparently, the base PS5 is what they were playing this thing on. The Strand system, of course, is still in place here, that asynchronous, online, almost co-op style, where you're helping people that will come before you or after you, where you can drop likes for people who have stuff there for you, or you can say leave a ladder for someone who's going to play the game next week even. So I think all of that is really cool, of course, with Death Stranding, but this just looks like Kojima taking everything there to the next level. And some are wondering if this game is a 65 to 70 hour experience. But again, I'm here for it. I'm very excited to see what Kojima has come up with for Death Stranding 2. I didn't really want to look too much at the previews because I'm already sold on the game and I don't want to spoil much about it because, again, the first Death Stranding has some scenes that really sneak up on you. Just going over certain parts, say big mountains and stuff, and seeing it really does hit you when you're playing. Dark room, quiet, the music just slowly fading in. There's a lot there. But for this, we do also have a DualSense controller that they have specifically for it. I think it looks pretty good. PlayStation Blog had an image here for it. It's like this matte black with the nice orange accents around it with some of the images. Now, it is a DualSense controller priced at $85, but the pre-orders are live May 22nd, and it launches June 26th alongside of the game. So I'll be there to at least pick up the game. I don't know if I need another DualSense controller. I think I'm good on that one. But still, I'm really excited to see what Kojima has in store for everyone here, especially when you hear things like, oh, it's kind of like the jump from Metal Gear Solid 1 to Metal Gear Solid 2, which was quite the leap. So yeah, we'll see what he has up his sleeve for Death Stranding 2 on June 26th. And in our last bit of news, let's actually talk about something that was making the rounds very recently with the GameCube on the Xbox Series systems. This technically isn't new in the sense that at one point you could go on the Xbox storefront, download emulators, and use your Xbox Series X or S to play a wide range of retro titles. And yes, that does include the GameCube. However, it started to make the rounds online again in different news cycles, mostly because of this tweet here. And this message is from RetroAchievements, just telling everyone, joining the RetroArch and the Xbox Series X or XBSX2 emulators, you can now play GameCube on the Xbox Series consoles through Dolphin with RetroAchievements. So the idea here is Dolphin had been moved to the Xbox Series. So people, of course, start searching around, how do I load up Dolphin on my Xbox? And the caveat at the bottom, the little fine print, is that you do still need to be in developer mode, okay? So MVG does have a video that really went over this in depth using even the Xbox Series S and shows how capable it is as an emulator. And as I mentioned before, I mean, Microsoft had to deal with this because it was just on the storefront. People were posting links that would then get you to it through the Internet Explorer, the Edge browser there. And it was a way to be able to load it up and just have it there on the retail side. But then Microsoft had to go through and disable it, which I assume they were running into some legal ramifications, or at least legal concerns with different partners. And I'm not even talking about Nintendo. I mean, PlayStation games were running on the thing. Third-party titles were running on it, and we see the big renaissance now of all of these older titles coming up through PlayStation Plus and NSO with their N64 and soon-to-be GameCube titles. So I feel like there was just pressure on Microsoft's end, and even so, we've seen Valve go, we don't really want Dolphin on Steam either, so it's something kind of to avoid because the payoff just is not worth it at all. But it was awesome to have all that stuff there. Still, though, if you're curious, you can do it. It's just not as easy as hitting a few buttons in retail mode and downloading it. You got to do some legwork and get into developer mode. Again, check out MVG. He went over a lot of this stuff in previous videos. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. Where I ask, are you picking up Death Stranding 2? Okay, well, 58% aren't interested, but you know what? That's not bad. Death Stranding 1, like I said, very controversial title. So to see that it's almost half and half there, not bad. 30% say maybe later if there's a sale. Makes sense. It is a $70 game. I understand. Many people are like, you know what? Games drop in price all the time. I'll wait. 12% are getting it ASAP. This is a game I don't want to be spoiled on, nothing. So I'll be buying it right away. I know there's an early access period, and it's like 2 days. I don't think I'm gonna get spoiled in 2 days, but I also understand it would technically give me a head start on the game for the podcast and any videos I may want to make on it. But the 2-day early access thing is kind of throwing me off for it. So, we'll see. At the very least, I'll pick it up on release and probably be binging through that game as fast as possible. And then we'll finish up with the comments of the day. We'll start with the members comment here. This is from It's Ornal. It says, Trails in the Sky first chapter is indeed a remake of the first game. This is the perfect time to get into the series. It has the deepest lore and characters of any RPG series I've yet to play. Give it a try. It will hook you. There you go. All right, I guess I'll be picking up this Trails game here, the first. So I figured that's what it was. That was the idea. There have been so many. In fact, I saw a comment that said, yeah, I was going to play that, but there's another Trails game coming out around then. And it's like, how do I have time for 2 of them when I've already played that one because it's a remake of the first one? So yeah, that's definitely for people trying to get into the franchise or the series for the first time. There you go. Pick up this remake. It has first in it, so it makes sense. I'll grab it, though, when it comes out later on this fall. And then we'll go over to the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from VSIN, who says, why trade in the Switch? Just keep it. It's probably the last generation of decent physical games. Well, I mean, technically, yes, because we have the Game Key stuff happening now. Who knows with the PS6? And I have to assume that Microsoft is, like, out on physical games just about now, but with the next Xbox, sure, absolutely. Still, it's always been a thing. A new generation comes up, you trade the old system and you get the new one. And it's been like that since like the start of video games. Since the start of video games with used titles. That wasn't always a thing either. The idea of trading stuff in. I do remember the Super Nintendo specifically you're able to trade stuff in. But before that with the Nintendo, it wasn't as widespread where you have GameStops or EB Games or even at the time Funko Lands all over the place. So it was just like, oh, here comes the GameCube, trade in my N64. Here comes the PS2, trade in the PS1. It was a little different, I guess, when you had like systems like the N64 to the GameCube where your games weren't going to play on the new one. So the PS1 to PS2 was seamless, easy, here you go. So it's always been that way. Save money on the new system, trade in the old one that most likely many people will just be putting in a closet or a drawer somewhere and kind of forget about. Although, how many people I'm sure look back on the old days of trading in, especially now, some of these retro systems like a GameCube with the whole collection of titles, maybe like a PS1 with all the RPGs that were out on disc. Yeah, now you go back and say, hold on, let's relax a little bit, let's not trade all that stuff in. I'm sure many people have stories covering some of those decisions back in the day. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card, or maybe you'll hear more about that Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer 2 that released. I did an entire video going over my thoughts on it when it dropped, and I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.